Hello everyone and welcome to the Mylio Photos coffee break. My name is Angela Andrew. I want to wish you guys all a happy Friday. And today we're going to be talking about how to triage your photo library, what to do when everything feels unorganized. We're going to go through 3 simple steps that you can take to start wrangling your library and getting it under control and getting it to the state that you want it to be. Before we jump in, I do want to let you know about some of the other events we have going on. Every single Tuesday and Thursday, we have live Q&A sessions. These are informal drop-in sessions where anybody who's using Mylio Photos, whether you are brand new or you've been with us for a really long time, you're welcome to jump in, ask questions, and I'll do my best to get those answered. And we cover a very wide variety of topics, anything from photography in general to cameras, photo editing, photo organizations, family history, and of course, any and everything Mylio Photos. So please feel free to join me at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays and Thursdays for those sessions. On Fridays, we hold these coffee breaks. And next week, we're going to be talking about, let's see here, batching like a boss. That's what it is. How to do batch processing, whether it's editing, so applying visual edits to your pictures, or if you just want to add metadata to a wide swath of your library. We're going to talk about different ways you can do that in Mylio Photos next week. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into today's session. And for those of you who have questions as we go along, please feel free to put them into the chat. We're also going to have time for questions at the very end. And at that point, you can use the raise hand icon there on your screen to ask questions, put into the chat that you have a question, or simply type your question into the chat and I'll read it off. Any of those are possible. And questions on today's topic or anything else Mylio related is always welcome. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into triaging your photo library, what to do when everything feels disorganized. How many people here can relate with that? I'm guessing there's going to be quite a few, and that even those who've been using Mylio for a long time, because we are constantly creating new media and we're always bringing in new pictures, moving things around, sometimes even though we might get things to a certain level of organization, you let it go for a while, and things feel a little bit out of hand. So we're going to talk through some strategies of how to make that better and how to wrap your head around it. So we're going to talk about a triage method that's going to hopefully reduce some of the overwhelm. And that's going to be on working with baby steps, taking things in manageable chunks and celebrating those small wins. We'll talk about smart filtering, so using QuickFilters in Mylio Photos, how that can narrow in and focus your effort. We'll talk about why adding metadata is important, because that's what's going to help you find things quickly. We'll discuss different ways that you can group your photos even before things are fully organized. Mylio has some really cool views in there that I like to call auto organization. And those, even if everything's a mess, switching to one of those views can almost instantly make you feel like, okay, I've got this a little bit under control. And then of course, we'll talk about some habits you can build to make sure your library stays in the state that you want it to be. So first off, the problem. I imported everything and now it's a mess. I'm guessing there's a lot of people here who can identify with this, because when you start with something like Mylio Photos, what we do is encourage you to bring everything into one library. And that is really step 1. But once you do that, it's like, okay, now what? So what we're going to talk about is the solution, which is this triage process to help you bring order to the chaos. So the first step here is filtering. In Mylio Photos, we have what we call QuickFilters, and these help you surface the most important photos and figure out which ones to organize first. Because the truth is, when you're looking at your entire library, whether you're looking at 5,000 photos, 50,000, or 500,000, looking at them all at once is overwhelming. Nobody wants to do that. So QuickFilters help you narrow down your library and go to specific chunks. And my encouragement here is to focus on the things that matter the most. So you're going to filter and look for things that are recent. You're going to look for things that are unrated. We've got some built-in quick collections that make this really easy. I'm going to show that to you in a minute. I also recommend tackling a single folder at a time. Again, it's about taking that entire library and breaking it down into a manageable group that makes it easier to organize. We'll discuss a little bit about deleting obvious clutter, getting rid of things like screenshots, and finding things like receipts. So sometimes you take pictures of things on your phone, those get imported into Mylio, and then they get buried and you're like, why do I have this junk in here? I'm going to show you a quick way to get rid of those too. So by narrowing our focus, using those quick filters, we're going to reduce overwhelm and build momentum. So first off, let's take a look at some of the quick collections in Mylio Photos here. There we go, switch over. Right now I'm in the all photos view. And if I take this and I'm going to just make this really small so we can see, if I go ahead and start scrolling here, looking at this like this and just watching these things scroll and load, okay, I have, let's see, open this up and let me deselect everything here really quick. Select none. I have 126,000 media in my library. That's a lot to wrap my head around all at once. So what I want to do is break this into smaller chunks so I can go ahead and start working through this. And it's not going to be an overnight thing. So cleaning up and organizing your library, one of the things that I like to clue people in on at the beginning of this process is this is not a snap your fingers and it's done kind of thing. This is something you have to work at and chip away at, and the tools in Mylio make it much easier, but it does require your input. So let's go ahead and get started with those quick collections and quick filters. So first off, over in the left here, if I open up that left sidebar from the all photos view, I'm given several different ways that I can filter my library. Now I mentioned you can work folder by folder. You can certainly do this here by go to folder, and you can see all of your folders that you have in Mylio Photos and drill down into a specific folder. Let's go here into my main photos category here. And let's say I want to start organizing in 2024. And I'm going to go ahead and let's see, this Las Vegas trip, I took a lot of pictures. So let's just go ahead and do that. That narrows my library from 126,000 down to 830. That's still a lot, but that's way more manageable. So just filtering by a specific folder and going through your folders one at a time can really make a difference. You can also make use of some of these built-in quick collections that we have here already built in. So up here at the top, we have quick collections. And a quick collection is a set of filters that's been saved. So there's a few that we've put together and we built into the program. You can also create your own. So if there's a certain parameter of things that you want to group together and work on, you can create and save your own quick collection. But what I like to start with here is you'll see we have one ready here for you called Need to Organize. What that does is it pulls up all of my pictures from the last 90 days that I have not added a star rating to, and I have not added a flag. From here, what I can do is I can jump into my quick review right here in the left, click on the tools, and then go to quick review. And that's going to put me into a view where I'm focused on just these images and I can go through and rate and tag these images. And from here, I can add my star ratings. I can add a pick or a reject flag. And then later on, if I marked it as a reject, I can delete it. So that's one way you can go about doing this. Now, I do encourage you, if you're not familiar with quick review, go back and watch our recording from last week. We talked about photo curation and we went in depth on these types of culling tools. So hopefully you can take an opportunity to go watch that, and that'll give you more information on how to use quick review. You can also just work with these pictures right here in this view from all photos, filtered to show you these things. And once you've worked through the last 90 days, you can go in here to by date and by date range. And instead of saying the last 90 days, you can say the last month, or you can say the last year. So let's say we already worked through these and I want to go back a little bit farther. So let's go ahead and just say last year, and I'm going to take the last 90 days out of there. I've now changed that. I've given myself more to work with. You can see that I've taken a lot of pictures in the last year that have not been dealt with. So that's one way to get you into smaller chunks. And I could even go month by month with this. So if I want to say only look at certain months, I can go here by, instead of by date range, I can go by month and by year. So let's start out with, let's say with this year. So let's go here to the 2020s and pin 2025. I'm going to go ahead and take last year out of this. So here's 2025, and then I want to go down here by month, and I just want to start everything here by month. So I'm going to go into January. Let's just take a look at what I've got from January. And then we can go through those images, get them rated and tagged. And again, you're just chipping down and sorting things, getting them to the state they need to be in by small batches of images. Now, let me go ahead and clear out these quick filters here. And let's see, let me jump back over here. We talked about tackling one photo at a time. We talked about the quick collections, screenshots. So cleaning up screenshots is something that I think is really important for all of us. a lot of times I end up with screenshots in my library by accident. I don't, maybe I set my phone down and I'm holding on a button and I accidentally press those two buttons on the sides of my phone. I end up with a screenshot. Sometimes I catch it and delete it right away. Other times it ends up in my phone and in my camera roll, which then syncs to my Mylio. I don't need those. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my by file and by file type, and not file size, I want file type. And you'll notice we have one here just for screenshots. So I can pin that. That's going to pull up everything in my library that's screenshots, and I can go ahead and delete the ones that I don't need to keep. So there are screenshots in here that are important to me, like this one that my little brother sent me. I thought that was really sweet, so I am never getting rid of that. My brother doesn't send things like that very often, so that was special. Or like when we had an earthquake earlier this year, and I took a screenshot of what happened with that earthquake. So those kinds of things I want to keep. But if it's something that you just kind of randomly captured or you only needed temporarily, you can get rid of them. So this is a great way to clean up screenshots. I also mentioned receipts. And there's a lot of different reasons why people might take a picture of a receipt. You might need to keep it for a record. You might need to send it to somebody as a record of, hey, this is for my expense report or something like that. And then later on, once that expense is cleared, you might not need that anymore. So the way that I find these is most receipts actually say receipt on them. And Mylio has OCR, or optical character recognition, meaning that it can read text and photos. So if I just go up here to my search and I type in receipt, there we go. And I can go ahead and take a closer look at that. And this is, goodness, this is from 2017. I probably don't need this anymore. It was a drop-off receipt for a UPS package. And I'm gonna guess that that has long since cleared, gotten to where it needed to be. I don't need this anymore. So I can just simply click delete on my keyboard, delete from all devices, and now that's gone and the clutter's out of my library. So keep that in mind. If you have something that has a repetitive bit of text on it that you know you've taken pictures of throughout the years that you know you want to clean up, use search, because OCR will do a very good job of picking up anything that is legible text. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on and talk about tagging. So using those same techniques that we were just discussing of working with smaller chunks of your library, I also recommend doing that with your metadata and tagging what matters most. So once you've gone through and you've added your stars or your flags, filter by those parameters and start adding that information that you need to be able to find it later on. So there's a lot of really good search tools out there. Mylio, in addition to many others, leverages AI to find objects and pictures. But the AI is not always going to remember things the way you remember things. So I do recommend adding in information that is particular to you and the way that you think. So the keywords that you might think of to search for something are not necessarily what the AI is going to find. So adding some selective keywords, adding in context and story and in title and caption are all very important. Additionally, going through and adding tags for people. And if you have scanned media, to change that to a fuzzy date. So at least get it close to where it's supposed to be in the timeline, or mark it as undated to handle later. All of these are good things. So let's start at the top here, talk first about dates. We're just gonna do a very quick overview on dates. So if you have a picture, let's pretend that this is a scanned image and I maybe scanned it on June 28th, but that's not the date that it was captured. So I wanna go in and click on the little more menu right here. This gives me other date options. So I can select a different date, I can put in a different timestamp, or if I don't know when this was taken, I can mark it as undated, and that becomes a to-do list for me later. Later on, when I want to deal with my undated pictures, I can go to my calendar view, and we're going to just scroll all the way up to the very top, to the very oldest bit in here, and you'll see I have an undated category. If I click in that, that is going to be all of the pictures that I need additional information for to apply the correct date. So that becomes a to-do list in itself. But that helps you get things a little bit more organized when you add those dates. When it comes to tagging people, two different ways to go about doing this. You can go image by image. So if you see a photo and you want to tag it, you can always go in and let me just go back here to my grid. And let's grab this one here of my husband. I can just go over here to the face tagging icon on the right. And if a face is recognized that hasn't been identified yet, you can go ahead and do that way. You can also go into the people view and go into your untagged up here in the upper left and start tagging individual faces. However, my favorite way to do this, once you've identified a few people in your library, is to go over here to the tools and to your batch face tagging and start working through this. Now again, work through this in small chunks, especially if you're just getting started, and give yourself a defined set of time to do this. I like to say, maybe give yourself 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you're gonna work through and name as many people as possible. In that respect, to me, that's a lot of fun. After, 15, 20 minutes, I feel like all the faces start to kind of blur together and it starts to get a little overwhelming. So take a break. Don't feel like you have to get it all done at once, but try to chip away a little bit of it at a time, and you're gonna make significant progress. So to show you what progress looks like, I went from having, thousands and thousands and thousands of faces to tag. I'm now down to only 278. Again, it's about taking a few at a time and just chipping away at it. And chances are you're gonna end up with a few untagged faces in there that are always gonna stay untagged because they might be people that you need to find out more about. So for instance, some of my family history pictures, I'm fairly certain that these are important people that I need to name, but I might not know who they are. I need to talk to my mom, I need to talk to my grandma. So they might remain in untagged for a little while, much like those undated ones that I need to research. Don't stress that. Just try to whittle it down and get it down as low as you can, little by little. All right, and then titles and captions and keywords. We've gone into this in other coffee break sessions, but basically any text that you add in Mylio into these fields, this goes into your XMP file that sits next to your picture, and this is all searchable. So if you add something into your title, your caption, or your keywords, all you have to do then in Mylio to find it later is go up here to your search tool and you can type that in. So I'm gonna go ahead and clear out that search, and let's go ahead and type in sunset. And you can see I've got lots of stuff in here related to sunset. If I just go ahead and click that, that's gonna pull up anything that's related to sunset. And a lot of these is because I've added keywords, or it's part of the file name, part of the caption, the title, and so forth. Every little bit of information that you add helps later on. Now, I wouldn't say that you need to keyword and caption every single thing in your library. That's way too much. So whittle it down and use those quick filters to only do this with the most important things. The way to do that is go back here to your all photos, go in here to your quick filters, your by rating, label, and flag, and you can start off with just anything that you added a pick flag to. And then you can go ahead and add the important things. Or you can say, I want to just do my 4 and 5 star things and add that information to those images, because those are the most important, and you really only want to take the time to do this with the things that are most important. So go through, do your quick review, or do your marking with your flags and your stars, then take the stuff that you've rated highly, and then take the time to add the additional information, add that additional context. Metadata is so important because it makes everything findable later on. Even if your library is scattered across many, many folders, that's what's going to make it feel organized, is when you can find something when you need it. Now, the next step is to group things into visual buckets. And the focus here is on light organization, not perfection. So first off, Mylio has 2 different views that I call auto organization. Actually 3 if you count the map. I didn't really list it here because the map view also will organize things based on where things were taken. But I love the calendar view and the people view because those are probably the top 2 ways that when I think about an event or a specific picture, that's how I remember it. I'm either going to remember approximately when it happened, or if a person was there, who was there. So by tagging the people and getting the dates correct, or at least close to correct, that puts them into the calendar view and the people view, so I can easily go to those views and everything is already organized for me there. I call that automatic organization in Mylio. So even if your folder structure is a complete disaster, your calendar view and your people view are going to be your friend, and your map view too if you prefer to find things based on the where. So you can just go ahead and go into Mylio, and I'm going to go ahead and clear out my filters here and into my calendar view. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to the most recent, and from here I can go ahead and browse my life in pictures. I can say, okay, oh, here's my cover photo from 2021. That's when I went to Sedona. I even have my event here. I can go and click on that. And there's all of my favorite pictures from my trip to Sedona. So that's a really quick and easy way to jump through. From there, I can go and click on a specific picture. From this, I can say show in folders, so that'll jump me to the folder where it lives. Or I can see everything else from that day in the calendar. So there's everything, all of my pictures, everything that's been rated and not rated. So there's lots of different ways that you can automatically organize things in Mylio to be able to get to them easily. Similarly, with your people view, you can find pictures of the people in your life that you have photographed. And I can say, I want to find all of the pictures of me. And I can double click on that, and that's going to go ahead and bring that up. And I can go ahead and browse through my library based on who is in the pictures. Bring this back over here. And then finally we have our map view, and this is going to show all of your pictures on the map. And you can browse by where you've been. So like, I want to see all the pictures from when I went to London. So here we go. There's London. There's my pictures. And there we go. So different auto organization in Mylio is your friend. Your folders don't have to be a sign of perfection. It's a nice goal. Sometimes it's not realistic because life just gets in the way and it can be very time consuming. So make use of these auto organization tools, and it's going to make you feel a lot more confident in your library and about browsing around and finding what you need. You also might want to check out categories and spaces. We're not going to go in depth on that today because it's kind of a deep subject, but it's a good way to help you separate, if you're on an individual account, your personal and your work photos. So I know in my own personal library, most of the stuff in there is personal, but I do have things that are related to work. I have different commercial clients that I've worked for, different portrait clients I've worked for, and pictures that I relate to different work trips that I've taken with Mylio or with other organizations in the past. I can use a category to mark those as work and then switch to the work space in Mylio, and then I'm only seeing my work pictures. So let me jump back over here. Right now I'm in spaces, I'm in the public space, but I can switch to work, and that's going to, it's got me filtered there in England, so that's not exactly what I want. Go back here to all photos. Anything that I've tagged as the work category is now what's showing, and you can see up here at the top, I'm in the workspace. You can even change spaces from the top now. And if I want, I can just switch back to public, and that brings me back to my everything that I want to show on live demos. So categories and spaces are a next step organization. And if you're using your library for multiple purposes, they are definitely worth exploring. Now we'll have more sessions that'll go more in depth on those in the future. You can also check out articles in the manual on using categories and spaces, and I do highly recommend checking them out. But these are some of the ways that you can go in and make your library more manageable. So just to kind of recap, and for you to take the next step, I want you to aim for making things visible in your library, not on perfection. So tag the things that matter most. Focus on the areas that you're wanting to look at the most often. And go through your library in small little chunks. Repeat this workflow, so using the QuickFilters and using the metadata and using the different views to get things under control. And then quick collections are a great way to monitor clutter, so you can use it at the beginning and then use it periodically moving forward. So that last 90 days quick collection to look at those pictures that you need to deal with, that is an awesome thing to do. Maybe pull that up once a month or even once a quarter, and that's going to help you keep your library in better shape. And then finally, celebrate the small wins, because this journey is ongoing. There's not a definitive start and stop in a photo organization process. Because we are constantly making pictures, we're always making more media, you're going to have more to organize as you go along. So celebrate those small wins, get things into a better state than they were yesterday, and be really happy about that, because you are doing something that's going to make your life better. And when these pictures get handed on to the next generation, even better for the next generation. So, well, just a reminder that we've got our live Q&As next week, and coffee break next week will be on batch processing. We'll talk a little bit about editing. We'll talk a little bit about batch adding metadata. So ways that you can work with large swaths of your library and get a lot done in a little bit of time. I think that'll be a useful one, and actually probably a really good segue from what we were talking about today of taking your library in chunks and getting things organized. So hopefully you guys will be able to join me for that and for Q&As. I want to say thank you to Lori for joining us and making sure everybody had the links in the chat. That's always super duper helpful. I love having her here. And wish you guys a wonderful weekend. Thank you again for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.